Ravi was not the kind of man who dreamed big anymore. Life had already taught him that dreams could break as quickly as glass. He lived in a small town at the edge of the countryside, where fields stretched far and wide, and the sound of passing cars was rare. His days were filled with work at the small repair shop he owned, and his evenings were spent caring for his little daughter, Mira. Mira was 6 years old, a girl with bright eyes and endless questions. She had become Ravi's whole world after his wife passed away 3 years ago. Since then, Ravi carried both roles, father and mother, doing his best to give Mira a happy life even when money was tight. On one quiet afternoon, as Ravi closed his shop early to walk home with Mira, an unusual sight caught his eye. A camper van stood at the side of the road, tilted slightly, with smoke rising from beneath the hood. It was old but fancy enough to suggest it belonged to someone from outside the town. Most travelers never stopped here, so it was rare to see such a vehicle parked on their dusty road. Mira tugged on her father's hand and pointed. "Papa, look. That van looks sick." Ravi chuckled softly at her words. "Yes, Biddy. It does look sick. Maybe the owner needs some help." He walked closer, and as he did, he noticed a woman standing near the camper. She wore simple jeans and a plain shirt, yet something about her posture, graceful, confident, didn't match the picture of an ordinary traveler. She looked a little lost, her dark hair tied back loosely, a map in her hand. "Excuse me," Ravi called out gently. "Do you need help?" The woman looked up, relief flashing across her face. "Oh, thank goodness. Yes, my camper just stopped working. I tried turning it on, but it keeps making strange noises. I don't know what's wrong." Ravi gave a reassuring nod. "I repair vehicles. Maybe I can take a look." Her eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected such luck. "That would be wonderful. I was afraid I'd be stuck here all night." Mira peeked from behind her father's leg, her curious gaze fixed on the stranger. The woman bent slightly, smiling warmly. "And who's this?" "This is my daughter, Mira," Ravi said, his voice softening. "Hello, Mira," the woman said kindly. "That's a beautiful name." Mira blushed and hid her face, making Ravi smile. He set his small toolbox on the ground and opened the camper's hood. Steam puffed out, and he carefully checked the engine. The problem was not too complicated, but it would take a few hours to repair properly. "It's your radiator," Ravi explained. "It's overheated and leaking. I can fix it, but it'll take time. My shop is nearby." The woman nodded eagerly. "Please, I'd be very grateful." Ravi worked with steady hands, while the woman stood nearby, sometimes asking small questions. She didn't talk much about herself, and Ravi didn't press. In small towns, people respected privacy. But still, he found her different from most strangers. Her voice was calm, her words careful, almost as if she had practiced hiding something. While he worked, Mira sat on the grass, humming a tune. At one point, she handed the woman a wildflower she had plucked. "For you," she said shyly. The woman's face softened as she accepted it. "Thank you. That's the sweetest gift I've received in a long time." By the time Ravi finished the basic repair, the sun had started setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. He wiped his hands with an old cloth and closed the hood. "It should run now, but you'll need to refill water often until I replace the radiator properly." The woman smiled in relief. "You've saved me. I didn't know what I would have done without you." Ravi nodded modestly. "It's nothing. I help whenever I can. If you'd like, you can park near my shop tonight. The road isn't safe for driving long at night with this condition. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Thank you. That's very kind of you. As they walked back toward the town, Mira skipped happily beside the woman, already chattering about her doll and her favorite storybook. Ravi noticed how easily his daughter connected with her, though usually Mira was shy with strangers. Something about this woman was unusual, yet comforting. He couldn't place it, but deep inside, he felt her story carried more weight than she showed. That night, as Ravi locked his shop and prepared a small dinner for Mira, he glanced outside and saw the camper parked safely nearby. A small light glowed from its window, and he imagined the woman inside, perhaps eating alone, perhaps staring at the road map again. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't know why she had chosen this quiet town to stop in. But he had a strange feeling this was not just another traveler passing by. This meeting was the beginning of something that would change their lives. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the thin curtains of Ravi's small house. He woke early, as always, to prepare breakfast for Mira before school. Life had taught him discipline, and he lived each day with a quiet routine. Still, today felt different. When he stepped outside, he saw the camper still parked near his shop. The woman had stayed. He wondered if she was awake yet, or if she would need help again. Mira came skipping behind him, her hair in 2 uneven braids he had done himself. She spotted the camper immediately and clapped her hands. Papa, is she still here? Can we go see her? Ravi smiled faintly. First breakfast, then school. Maybe we'll see her after. But before they could turn back inside, the camper door opened. The woman stepped out, dressed in the same plain jeans and shirt but looking fresher, as if she had rested well. She carried a small thermos in her hand. When she saw Ravi and Mira, her face brightened. Good morning, she called. Good morning, Ravi replied politely. Did you sleep well? Yes, thank you. Much better than I expected. This town is so peaceful. She glanced down at Mira and knelt slightly. And good morning to you too, little one. Mira giggled. Good morning. Do you want to eat with us? Papa makes good paratha. Ravi gave his daughter a look, embarrassed by her sudden offer. But the woman only smiled warmly. That sounds lovely, but I don't want to trouble you. It's no trouble, Ravi said quickly, though he was surprised by his own words. Perhaps it was her kindness, or perhaps it was the way Mira already adored her. You can join us if you like. So the 3 of them sat around the small wooden table in Ravi's kitchen. It was a simple meal, paratha, chutney, and tea, but the woman ate with quiet appreciation. She seemed comfortable, yet she didn't speak much about herself. My name is Asha, she finally said when Mira asked directly. And yours, I already know. She smiled at Ravi. Ravi nodded. Nice to meet you, Asha. The name suited her. Simple, graceful. Still, there was something in the way she spoke, as though she was used to being careful about every word. After breakfast, Ravi walked Mira to school. On the way back, he found Asha waiting near the shop. She looked around curiously, as though studying the small town. It's very different here, she said softly. So quiet. Everyone I've seen greets with a smile. It feels unreal. Ravi raised a brow. You don't come from small places, do you? She gave a tiny laugh. No, not really. My life has always been busier. Too busy. That answer only deepened Ravi's curiosity, but he didn't press. Instead, he asked, "Do you want me to finish repairing your camper today?" "Yes, please," she said gratefully. Ravi rolled up his sleeves and got to work, replacing the damaged radiator with an old spare part he had stored away. Asha stayed nearby, watching quietly. She didn't act impatient or proud, like some travelers did when they thought their money could solve everything. She seemed genuinely thankful for every effort. At one point, she crouched down beside him. "You work very carefully," she remarked. Ravi shrugged. "Vehicles are like people. They need patience. Rushing only makes things worse." Their eyes met for a brief moment. She gave a small smile, almost sad, and then looked away. By afternoon, the repair was done. The camper roared to life when Ravi turned the key. Asha clapped softly, delighted. "You're truly skilled. How can I thank you?" Ravi shook his head. "Just pay for the parts. Labor is nothing." But she insisted, handing him more than what the repair cost. Ravi hesitated but accepted, knowing refusing would only create awkwardness. "Will you be leaving today?" he asked casually. She paused. "I'm not sure yet. I thought I would, but maybe I'll stay a little longer. This town feels safe." That evening, as Ravi went to pick up Mira from school, he found her already talking to Asha. The woman had been waiting outside, and Mira excitedly showed her a drawing she had made. Ravi watched them from a distance for a moment. His daughter, usually shy, was opening her heart easily. And Asha, though clearly a stranger, was responding with warmth, as if she had known Mira for years. Later, when they walked back together, Mira held Asha's hand on one side and Ravi's on the other. "Papa," she said innocently, "can Asha stay here forever? I like her." Ravi chuckled, though inside he felt a strange twist in his chest. "She has her own journey, Biddy. She won't stay forever." Asha looked down, her expression unreadable. For a brief second, Ravi thought he saw something in her eyes, loneliness, hidden behind her smile. That night, as the camper's light glowed again outside the shop, Ravi wondered who she really was. Asha was not an ordinary traveler. Her words, her guarded tone, and the way she carried herself, it all hinted at a story she was hiding. But for now, she was just a stranger who had stepped into their quiet lives. And somehow, without planning it, she was already becoming part of it. Days began to slip by, and to Ravi's surprise, Asha did not leave. What started as a single night in the small town stretched into 3, then 5. Each day she gave the same excuse: she wanted to rest a little longer before moving on. But Ravi noticed the way she looked at the quiet streets, the open fields, and the smiling faces of the townsfolk. She wasn't just resting. She was searching for something she had lost long ago: peace. Mira was the happiest about Asha's presence. Every afternoon after school, she ran straight to the camper, knocking on its door before Ravi could even tell her to slow down. Asha always welcomed her warmly, often with a glass of juice or a small story to share. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Ravi found the two of them sitting under the big neem tree near his shop. Mira was curled up against Asha's side, listening with wide eyes as Asha told her a folk tale from a faraway city. Her voice carried a rhythm, soft yet strong, like someone who had spoken to many audiences before. Ravi leaned quietly against the doorframe, watching. Mira rarely connected so quickly with strangers, yet here she was, laughing freely as Asha pretended to act out the characters of her story. When the story ended, Mira clapped loudly. Again. Tell me another one. Asha chuckled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Tomorrow, little one. Even storytellers get tired. That night, after putting Mira to bed, Ravi sat outside fixing an old bicycle when Asha came over. She stood silently for a while before speaking. You're raising her so well, she said softly. She's full of love. Ravi glanced up, surprised. I try. It isn't easy, being both mother and father. Her eyes softened. She doesn't feel the absence. That's a gift you've given her. Ravi looked down at his tools, his throat tightening. He rarely spoke of his late wife. Life had forced him to stay strong, to hide his grief so his daughter wouldn't drown in it. But hearing those words from Asha, it touched something deep inside him. The next morning, Asha offered to help with small things at the shop. Ravi was hesitant at first. He wasn't used to outsiders stepping into his routine. But she insisted. Soon, she was sweeping the floor, handing him tools, and even greeting a few of the regular customers. The customers whispered, of course. A stranger in their little town always drew attention, and this one seemed unusual. She spoke politely, but there was a refinement in her tone that didn't match her plain clothes. Some guessed she was from a big city, others thought she was perhaps running from something. But no one dared to ask directly. One afternoon, while Ravi repaired an old tractor, Asha sat nearby, sketching in a small notebook. Mira peeked over her shoulder and gasped. Papa, look. She's drawing us. Ravi wiped his hands and walked over. Sure enough, on the page was a delicate sketch of him bent over the tractor, with Mira sitting cross-legged on the ground. The lines were simple, yet full of life. You're an artist, he asked. Asha smiled faintly. Not really. Just a hobby. It helps me remember moments. Ravi studied the drawing for a long moment. It struck him that she had captured something he often overlooked, the quiet bond he shared with his daughter in their simple daily life. That evening, Asha joined them for dinner again. This time, Ravi noticed how natural it felt. She laughed at Mira's little jokes, asked about Ravi's shop, and even helped wash the dishes afterward. For a moment, the house felt less empty, less lonely. Later, after Mira had gone to bed, Ravi found himself asking the question that had been sitting on his tongue for days. You never talk about your family, he said gently. Do you have anyone waiting for you? Asha froze for a moment, then set down the cup she was holding. Her eyes lowered. I do. But, it's complicated. Ravi nodded, sensing he had touched something fragile. He didn't push further. Everyone had secrets, and he respected that. But when she finally looked up, there was a flicker of pain in her eyes, quickly hidden behind a smile. For now, I'm glad to be here. With you and Mira. That night, as Ravi lay awake, he thought about her words. He didn't know who Asha really was, or why she chose to linger in their little town. But he knew one thing: her presence was changing something inside him. He had built walls around his heart, walls made of grief and quiet acceptance. Yet slowly, with her laughter, her kindness, and the way she cared for Mira, Asha was finding cracks in those walls. And though he didn't want to admit it, a part of him wondered if letting her in would heal him or hurt him all over again. The town's weekly market was always busy. Vendors spread out their stalls with baskets of vegetables, clay pots, spices, and handmade clothes. Children ran through the narrow lanes, their laughter mixing with the sound of bargaining voices. Ravi rarely had time to enjoy the market. Usually, he went quickly, bought what he needed, and returned to his shop. But that Saturday, Mira begged him to take her along, and Asha offered to join them. "It will be fun," Asha said with a smile. "Besides, I haven't seen much of the town yet." Ravi hesitated. He knew strangers always drew attention in such gatherings. Still, the way Mira clung to Asha's hand made it hard to refuse. So, the three of them walked together through the crowded lanes. Asha wore a simple scarf over her hair, blending in as much as she could. Yet, Ravi noticed heads turning. Not because people knew her but because there was something about her grace that could never fully hide. At one stall, Asha bent down to examine a piece of embroidered cloth. The vendor, an old woman, smiled kindly. "This one is special. It was made by my granddaughter. You have an eye for quality." Asha smiled back, her voice warm. "It's beautiful. I'll take it." Ravi saw the joy in the old woman's eyes as Asha paid without bargaining. Small kindnesses like this came naturally to her, as though she was used to giving without counting. But just as they were about to move on, Ravi noticed a man standing a little farther away. He wore dark sunglasses, holding a phone in his hand, and his gaze lingered too long on Asha. Something about his posture made Ravi uneasy. They continued walking, but Ravi's eyes kept flicking back. The man seemed to follow them through the crowd, keeping distance yet never losing sight. At a fruit stall, Asha leaned down to pick some apples, and the man lifted his phone slightly, as if taking a picture. Ravi's jaw tightened. He stepped in front of Asha quickly, blocking the view. The man turned away, pretending to check another stall, but the tension in Ravi's chest grew heavier. "Let's go," he said quietly. Asha looked up at him, puzzled by his sudden tone, but she followed without asking questions. Mira, busy eating a piece of sugar cane given by a friendly vendor, didn't notice anything unusual. When they finally reached a quieter street, Ravi turned to Asha. "That man was watching you. Do you know him?" For a moment, something flickered across her face: fear. It disappeared quickly, replaced by a calm mask. "No. I don't think so. Maybe you're mistaken." Ravi studied her closely. He had repaired enough machines in his life to know when something wasn't working as it should. And right now, Asha's words did not match the emotion in her eyes. But he didn't push. Instead, he simply said, "Be careful. This isn't a big city, but even here, people notice." That evening, as they returned home, Asha was quieter than usual. She helped Mira with her schoolwork, laughed at her little jokes, but Ravi could see her mind was far away. After Mira went to bed, Asha stepped outside and stood near the camper, staring up at the stars. Ravi joined her, folding his arms against the cool night air. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said softly. "But I can see you're carrying something heavy. If you're in trouble, I should know. For Mira's sake, if nothing else." Asha's eyes glistened in the dim light. For a long moment, she said nothing. Finally, she whispered, "I thought I had escaped. I thought I could disappear for a while. But maybe it's not that simple." Ravi frowned. "Escaped from what?" She looked at him, her voice trembling just slightly. "From a life that doesn't feel like mine." Before he could ask more, she shook her head firmly, forcing a smile. "Thank you for caring, Ravi. But for now, please just let me stay a little longer." That's all I need. Ravi wanted to press, but the quiet desperation in her voice stopped him. He simply nodded. The next morning, life seemed to return to normal. Mira dragged Asha to the fields to show her how to fly a paper kite. Their laughter filled the air, and for a while, it felt as though nothing was wrong. Yet Ravi could not shake the image of that man at the market. Nor could he ignore the way Asha's hands trembled slightly when she held the kite string. Her secret was growing heavier, and sooner or later, it would come to light. And deep in his heart, Ravi feared that when it did, the fragile peace they had built would be shattered. The days after the market felt uneasy for Ravi. Though Asha tried to act as if everything was normal, he noticed the small changes: how she looked over her shoulder when walking, how she quickly closed her notebook whenever someone came near, how her laughter sometimes carried a shadow of worry. Ravi didn't ask questions, but his thoughts kept circling back to the man at the market. Whoever he was, Asha had recognized him, even if she pretended otherwise. One evening, when Mira was fast asleep, Asha knocked softly on Ravi's door. She stood there with her scarf wrapped tightly, as though she was guarding herself not from the cold, but from the truth waiting to come out. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. Ravi nodded and stepped aside. She sat at the small wooden table while he poured 2 cups of tea. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched, filled only by the faint chirping of crickets outside. Finally, Asha took a deep breath. "Ravi, I haven't been honest with you. Not because I wanted to lie, but because I wanted, just for once, to live without being judged for who I am." Ravi's eyes stayed steady on her. "Who are you, Asha?" Her voice trembled slightly, though her gaze was firm. "My full name is Asha Varma. I am the owner of a large company in the city. Some call me a billionaire, though I never cared for numbers. To the world, I am successful, powerful, untouchable. But inside, I am tired. Tired of being surrounded by people who want something from me. Tired of never knowing who is genuine. Tired of living under the weight of cameras and headlines." Ravi blinked, stunned. He had imagined many things: perhaps she was running from a failed relationship, or from some family conflict. But this? A billionaire hiding in his small town? It seemed almost unreal. Asha continued, her voice softer now. "The man you saw at the market, he probably works for the media. They have been trying to find me since I disappeared a month ago. I left everything behind: my office, my meetings, my security team. I told no one where I was going. I just drove. I thought if I stayed in a small town, I could be invisible. For a little while, at least." Ravi leaned back slowly, letting her words sink in. He glanced at her simple clothes, the way she had swept his shop floor, the way she had laughed with Mira. None of it matched the image of a wealthy, powerful woman. And yet, in this moment, he saw the truth in her eyes. "You came here to escape," he said quietly. "Yes," she admitted. "To escape and to remember what life feels like when it isn't about money or status. When it's just real." Her eyes filled with tears she quickly wiped away. "Being here with you and Mira, I've felt more human than I have in years." Ravi's chest tightened. He wanted to comfort her, but his mind swirled with questions. Why had fate brought her here, into his quiet, ordinary life? And what would happen when the world found her again? "You should have told me earlier," he said finally, his tone calm but firm. Asha looked down. "I was afraid. I thought if you knew, everything would change." you would see me differently. Ravi stayed silent for a moment, then said, maybe I do see you differently now. But not because of your money. Because I see how heavy your loneliness is. Her eyes met his, shining with gratitude. Thank you, for not turning away. The rest of the night passed in quiet conversation. She told him stories of boardrooms filled with people who smiled but never cared, of houses filled with expensive things but empty of warmth. She spoke of how she would sit in her grand office, staring out at the city lights, wishing for one simple evening where nobody wanted anything from her. Ravi listened without judgment. He knew the weight of loss, though his was different from hers. Still, pain had a way of making people understand each other. When she finally rose to leave, she paused at the door. I don't know how long I can stay hidden. But while I'm here, please let me be just Asha. Not a billionaire. Not a name in the papers. Just Asha. Ravi gave a small nod. As long as you're here, that's all you'll be. She smiled then, a real smile, free from her mask of control. For the first time since arriving, she looked lighter. After she left, Ravi stood at the window, staring at the faint glow from the camper. He still couldn't fully believe it. A billionaire, hiding in his little town, eating at his small table, laughing with his daughter. But more than the shock of her identity, what struck him most was her vulnerability. Beneath all the wealth and power, she was simply a woman searching for peace. And without realizing it, she had already tied her life to his and Mira's in ways none of them could ignore. The next week was restless for Ravi. Now that he knew Asha's truth, every sound of a vehicle stopping near the shop made him alert. He feared that someone from her world, the media, or worse, people chasing her wealth, would appear at their doorstep. Asha tried to act as though nothing had changed, but Ravi could see the weight in her shoulders. She laughed with Mira, helped at the shop, and even joined the neighbors in cooking for the school's charity event. Yet whenever a stranger walked by, her eyes flicked nervously, scanning faces. One afternoon, a sleek car stopped near the market square. Men in suits stepped out, speaking quickly into phones. The sight made Ravi's heart pound. He hurried to close his shop, motioning for Asha to stay inside. They're not here for me, she whispered, trying to reassure him. But her hands trembled slightly as she held Mira close. That evening, after the car had left, Ravi confronted her. How long do you think you can hide like this? Sooner or later, they'll find you. Asha looked down at her hands. I know. But I'm not ready to go back. Out there, everything is noise. Here, for the first time, I feel like I can breathe. Ravi sighed deeply. He wanted to protect her, but he also knew his life was simple. His world was small, his shop, his daughter, his quiet town. Could he really shield someone like her from the storms she carried? Later that night, while Mira slept, Ravi sat outside on the porch, staring at the stars. His thoughts battled inside him. Part of him wanted to keep Asha close, to let her stay and bring light into his daughter's life. But another part warned him she belonged to a different world, a world that would never let her go quietly. Asha stepped out quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. She sat beside him, her eyes following his gaze to the sky. I know what you're thinking, she said softly. That I don't belong here. That I will leave one day, and everything will go back to the way it was. Ravi didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, I'm just worried for Mira. She has already grown attached to you. If you leave suddenly, it will hurt her. Asha's eyes glistened. It will hurt me too. For a long time, they sat in silence, listening to the distant sound of crickets. Asha's hand brushed against his, just lightly, but enough for him to feel the warmth. Neither pulled away. The next day, whispers began spreading in town. Some villagers had seen the men in suits asking questions. One neighbor mentioned they were looking for a missing woman. Ravi pretended not to hear, but unease grew stronger in his chest. That evening, as Asha and Mira played with paper boats near the pond, Ravi overheard two shopkeepers talking nearby. They say she's from the city. Some rich family. Imagine, staying here like a common traveler. If that's true, trouble will follow. Mark my words. Ravi clenched his fists. He hated how quickly people turned gossip into truth. Still, he couldn't stop the fear that maybe they were right. That night, Asha found him repairing a broken lantern in the workshop. She watched him silently for a while before speaking. You don't trust that I'll stay, do you? Ravi looked up, his eyes tired. I don't know what to believe, Asha. You have a life out there, one filled with wealth and power. And me? I have a small shop and a little girl. What if tomorrow someone comes and takes you back? Where will that leave us? Her voice broke as she answered, I didn't come here to compare our worlds. I came because I wanted to feel what yours has: peace, love, honesty. Do you think I would give up everything just to pretend? Ravi looked at her, struggling with the emotions inside him. He wanted to believe her. But fear made him silent. The next morning, Ravi noticed Mira's excitement when Asha braided her hair before school. Papa, she said happily, can Asha come with us to the fair next week? Please. Ravi forced a smile. We'll see, Biddy. As Mira ran ahead, Asha stood beside him, her voice soft. You're afraid of letting me into your life. He exhaled slowly. I've lost once, Asha. Losing again. I don't know if I can survive it. Her eyes filled with quiet sadness. And I've never had what you have. A family that feels real. If I lose this, I don't know if I can survive it either. Their words hung in the air, fragile and heavy. Both wanted the same thing: to hold on. Yet both feared the cost of it. That night, Ravi lay awake listening to the steady breathing of his daughter in the next room. His heart whispered that Asha was different, that she truly longed for the life they lived. But his mind warned him that sooner or later, her past would come crashing down on them. And he knew the real test was coming soon. The town fair arrived with bright colors and cheerful noise. Stalls lined the streets with sweets, wooden toys, and handmade jewelry. Children ran with balloons, the smell of roasted corn filled the air, and music played from the small stage in the square. Mira tugged on Ravi's hand, her excitement bubbling over. Papa, look. Swings. And candy floss. Ravi smiled faintly. Her joy was contagious. Yet his heart felt heavy. He had spent the week torn between fear and hope. Asha was still here, still part of their days, but the whispers in town grew louder. Every glance from strangers made him wonder if someone would recognize her. Asha walked beside them, dressed simply but with a scarf that half covered her face. Despite her attempt to blend in, her presence still drew eyes. She ignored them and held Mira's hand, laughing as the girl pointed at every stall. For a while, everything felt normal. They rode the Ferris wheel, shared cotton candy, and cheered at a puppet show. Mira's laughter echoed like music, and even Ravi felt some of his worries melt away. But peace never lasted long. As they passed a stall selling bangles, Ravi noticed a man in the crowd raising a camera, aiming it directly at Asha. His stomach tightened. Before he could react, the man clicked several photos, then slipped quickly into the crowd. Asha froze, her face pale. She whispered, "They've found me." Ravi pulled her aside, his hand firm on her shoulder. "Stay calm. Let's get Mira home first." The walk back felt endless. Asha kept glancing behind them, and Ravi's jaw stayed tight. Mira, too young to understand, hummed happily with her new toy in her hand. When they reached the shop, Ravi sent Mira inside. Asha remained outside, leaning against the camper, her eyes filled with fear. "I should leave," she said suddenly. "If I stay, I'll bring trouble to you and Mira. The media will come. They'll surround this town. It isn't fair to you." Ravi's chest ached. Part of him wanted to agree, wanted to protect Mira from the chaos. But another part, stronger, refused to let her walk away. "You think leaving will solve everything?" he asked quietly. "Maybe they'll chase you, maybe they'll write stories. But is running away what you really want? Or do you want something real?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I want this. I want the peace I feel here. I want the way Mira hugs me without asking who I am. I want the way you look at me, Ravi, not as a billionaire, but as a person. But how can I have it? My life isn't normal. It never will be." Ravi stepped closer, his voice steady. "Normal doesn't matter. What matters is where your heart feels at home. You can't erase who you are, Asha. But you can choose who to be with." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the chirping of evening birds. Asha's tears spilled, but her smile trembled through them. That night, after Mira had fallen asleep, Asha sat with Ravi in the small kitchen. "When I left the city," she confessed, "I thought I was escaping. But maybe I was searching. Searching for a life that feels honest. For people who don't want me for my name or my money." She reached across the table, her hand resting on his. "I found that here with you and Mira." Ravi's eyes softened. He had been afraid, yes. Afraid of losing again, of opening his heart only to have it broken. But in her words, he heard truth, the same truth he had seen in her laughter with Mira, in her simple kindness, in the way she swept his shop floor without pride. "Asha," he said slowly, "I can't promise you an easy life. I have little to give, just a small home, a small shop, and love for my daughter. But if you want to stay, you will never be alone." Her hand tightened on his. "That's more than I ever dreamed of." The following week, the media indeed arrived. Cameras flashed, stories spread. But Asha made her choice clear. She stood outside the shop, speaking calmly to the reporters. "Yes, I am Asha Verma. Yes, I stepped away from my business. Because life is not about wealth alone. I've found something more important: family, love, and peace. This is my life now." The reporters were stunned. Some scoffed, some questioned. But Asha remained firm, her eyes shining with conviction. And when Ravi stepped out beside her, holding Mira's small hand, the cameras captured an image that told its own story, not of power, not of wealth, but of a woman choosing heart over fame. In the days that followed, some people criticized her, others admired her. But for the small town, nothing truly changed. Neighbors still smiled, Mira still skipped on her way to school, and Ravi still opened his shop each morning. Only one thing was different: the house felt fuller, warmer. Asha cooked with them, laughed with them, and sat under the stars with Ravi, no longer hiding. She was no longer a stranger passing through. She was part of their family. And though the world outside continued its noise, inside that little home, they had found what mattered most: love that asked for nothing but honesty, and a family that no amount of money could ever buy.